future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
The views and opinions.
All right, got to push the right buttons here.
Of course.
It's tough getting good help these days.
Is this
The audience
working,
is fabulous. Yes, it is. You are on, I am on, and we are on Dr. Judy, WTF, which is What the Freud, heard every Thursday here at 8 p.m. Pacific, here at UBN Radio. And tonight is a special night, as it is for the first Thursday of every month now. It is free for all calls. So if you've been dying to get on the couch with Dr. Judy, you have no excuse now to call area code 323-843-2826. That's 323-843-2826. Or international, you can call on Skype at UBN, which is Universal Broadcasting Network, UBN2, number 2 on Skype. And we've got a plethora of questions from YouTube, and so we're going to be using those until somebody calls.
And also, a lot of people write emails to say, please do a show on this,
and
this.
We're
So
working
now,
on several of them.
Now you can do that show on this, because all you need to do is call in and say, I want to talk about that topic, and it's all yours.
Absolutely.
So we really appreciate the call-ins, and thank you so much to all of you listening and all the kind acknowledgments and comments, and it's just really an honor to be of service to everybody out there. I also want to let everyone know that we have an amazing staff of people. We do see people on a sliding scale fee. We try to honor our therapists and make the minimum an $80 a session. But if you really, really need help,
there are exceptions.
Please reach out anyway, and then I'll reach to my staff and see if there's anyone on the team that has time to help you, okay? So
I wanted to start real quick. It was a nice little comment from YouTube, kind of a testimonial that was done this week. And she heard the Narcissistic Mother on Her Children, which is a popular show. Mm-hmm. Wow. After listening through the whole program, I realized my mother really has every single one of these traits. And I, of course, am her blood bank. And every now and then she tries to get a bite out of me and my 2 daughters, while my dad is already sucked dry. Thank you so much for all you guys do, Judy and Walt.
Okay, so I want to thank you for that comment, and I want to start by getting into the mind map system, which is a system I developed for a global project called Join the Human Race Healing Global Disconnect. We have a call.
We're gonna have to call. We have to wait.
Let's go.
Hi, you're on the couch with Dr. and Judy. Thanks for calling.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm calling from Canada.
Nice. I'm, I'm Canadian. I'm from Montreal, Canada. So that's
Okay,
great to hear,
great.
fellow Canadian.
And your name?
My name is Moya.
Moya.
Hi, Moya.
Hey, Moya.
What part of Canada are you calling from?
Well, I live in the Okanagan, actually.
Where is that?
I'm from Vancouver
Okay.
to the Okanagan, and I have a lovely setup here now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Life's really good, and I'm really thriving now that I got away from all of the really, really destructive elements that were keeping me in a very, very sad place.
Okay.
So that's my ex-husband, all my siblings, who are so tragically damaged from a narcissistic parent.
Never would have guessed.
And I have done the research and the work that they refuse to do. They don't seem to be able to get in touch with the fact that they were so deeply traumatized. They're just living with the wounds, and they don't want to explore anything. So I was the golden child. They will never value me or, care about me or honor me in any way because they have such deep resentments to me.
Yeah, you've already had your place in the sun as far as they're concerned, and so now it's their turn, unfortunately.
Well, they have no son in their lives.
Yeah. So it sounds to me that you've been listening to the episodes, yes?
Yes, and, wonderful because it wasn't until a few years ago I started, becoming enlightened to the fact that my mother was narcissistic. I didn't know what the problem was, and I didn't know what my problem was, and I didn't know what my siblings' problem was. And now now with many years of continued searching and research, I now realize what the problem was.
Yeah.
And so she pitted all of us against each other, so we can't possibly have a loving, trustful relationship.
Absolutely.
That's a triangulation.
At all, because she destroyed all that. She would never let that happen.
Right, and just wondering if you saw the episodes on sibling rivalry. Did you see those 3 episodes that we did on sibling rivalry?
I'm not
2
sure
episodes, I think. Yeah.
But I certainly understand the dynamics, and I may not have, and I will. But what I'm struggling with a bit right now is I married a man who wasn't right for me because he obviously triggered something in me that was familiar, and he did not. He was actually. I've just figured it out. He came from a big German family. He comes from a big German family, which I was attracted to because it, all of that bonding and everybody is working. Is working for the collective. I realized that he was programmed to serve the collective of his big German family, and I've just realized that he couldn't serve me because his family always came first. He had no idea about serving, his primary partner. And I had no idea either about how to, be in a loving relationship because my parents fought all the time, and they didn't demonstrate or model any kind of love or anything like that. So I had nothing to go by, and I was attracted to him because he came from this big family. But I had no idea that I was going to pay this huge price because he was actually programmed to serve the collective. Right. And so I came last. I always came last.
So are you still, did you say this is an ex, or you're currently married to this individual?
Oh, the ex,
He's an
15
ex.
years
Okay,
now.
and see, this is a problem with choosing partners when we're unhealed. So when we pick people...
I didn't know. I had no idea.
No, we don't have ideas because everything is so unconscious, and we're doing what I call, as you know, a WTF, which is a what the Freud, which is a repeat pattern. So look, in your family of origin, you were serving the collective parents. You understand?
Yeah.
So you were already used to that system. And so you weren't being served, so then you married a man that wasn't serving you just as you weren't being served. And the only
Right.
way you were served in your family is if you behaved like the golden child and cater to their whims. So
Yes.
not a good setup for you. And you can see that, as I've mentioned on a couple of episodes, especially the ones on sibling rivalry, that the parents set up the chess pieces. They set up the dynamics unconsciously. It's not like they wake up and think, we're going to ruin everybody's life here. It's just that they've been injured. So when we talk about narcissistic parents, we're talking about narcissistically injured parents who then spread their, I call it the psychovirus, the multi-generational psychovirus or pathology to the next generation, and then the whole thing continues until somebody pulls out of the system, like you. So you decide to have better boundaries. You move to a different location, correct?
Yep.
Okay, you set your
I had to actually leave everyone.
Yeah, sometimes you
I
have
had
to
to
leave
actually
everyone.
leave
Yes.
everyone
Yeah.
in order to thrive, to survive and thrive, because I was just being
You're being
well, continual abuse.
Yeah, you're being vampired and all the flying monkeys. I mean, it's a battle they're not going to win. It's a losing battle, and you obviously have to look out for yourself. So you did as tough and a difficult decision that it was. You did the right thing.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
worried. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
realize that, but it's been like my whole lifetime a struggle trying to figure stuff out.
Well, it's
figure
blinding
it out.
because this stuff is blinding. It's called the blind spot. We don't know what's going on, and children have a propensity to make themselves wrong. So when things are not going right in a child's life, they think that they're at fault. There's something that they're doing. I was just working with somebody today whose mother yelled and beat her. This is just not an uncommon problem, and all she could think of is, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do? And how come my dad says, behave, honey, and your mother won't hit you? Like, really? So the father,
Well,
right?
see, I was the only one who figured out how to not get beat up, because I was nurturing to her.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out how to get some love, because I would, nurture her. She was not being nurtured by my father, so she was not being. So she was a desolate woman herself, and I would do that for her. So I got a little bit back, and I got to be the golden child.
Right. So look
But
at the.
I've suffered for it for my whole life from my siblings.
Of course, because not only now were you the favorite and hated one, right? You also were trained to flow in the opposite direction. So instead of learning how to take in love, you had to have this bad deal where as a child you had to give before you got. And the only thing that you got was what she wanted to give you, and it was conditional on you behaving according to what her needs were. So in a healthy family, right, in a healthy family dynamic, it's the mother that's supposed to intuit the needs of the child, not vice versa. So here you were a parentified child, right? And so it's not really surprising that you would enter into a relationship where you now are the one that has to intuit the needs of your husband and comply with the needs of your husband and enter into a system where he's giving to others and not giving to you. So it's kind of the same thing. Do you see it? Could you see the pattern?
Well, I didn't, of course, have, in the beginning of the relationship, none of that was apparent.
Yeah.
But I also, he was quite cold phically.
Mm-hmm.
He's German, cold. They don't like to be touched
Distant,
and all that stuff.
distant.
Right.
They're programmed, and so for some reason I was drawn to that.
Challenging, right?
Yeah,
right.
It's a no-brainer. I was drawn to
Right.
and because I don't think I could have handled a man who was, wanting all that, wanting all of that affection all the time. I think I would have repelled that.
Okay, so I don't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to show you in the audience something. If you don't mind putting up panel number 7, okay? So panel number 7.
And those of you that are listening, you can go to drjudywtf.com and see the mind map.
Yeah, I just want you to see the system of it. So basically, panel number 7 is the sharing panel. It's where people interconnect, and as a result of the interconnection, there's light between the people. So when there's a mother that's taking from the daughter, there's no interconnection. It's a vampiring effect. So instead of light, there's darkness. So what happens to you, the individual who's trained to be the giver, the golden child giver, is that you don't really know how to be a taker. Okay? So your membrane, your permeable membrane for taking is non-permeable. So you don't know how to let in a warm man because you don't know that system. That's a foreign object to you. So what you do know is a cold man where you can bring the warmth to the fire. So you're always stoking his fire. That's what you know. Does that make sense to you?
And feeling all his emotions that he refuses to feel.
Right. So it's a really bad deal. And so
bad deal.
Right. So just curious, do you have a copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect?
Yes, I bought your book, and it came in the mail just last week, so I'm going to start in, and I'm sure that will be far more explanatory. I just wanted to also mention that my daughter now, who's now 33 and has a child of her own, now she's now that she's grown and has a child of her own, demonstrating really weird behavior towards me, like very disrespectful and for the first time, in our relationship, very oh my God, so very, very hurtful.
Okay. So this shows up. You see, this shows up in the next generation as well.
Yeah.
And what happens oftentimes is that when a child cannot express their anger, and I don't know the dynamic between you and your daughter, and you and your daughter and your husband.
I've talked to her, and I've said, I've asked her all these things. Did you ever feel that you couldn't say what you wanted to say, or, all these things? And she says no. But she's, because I was very conscious of all that stuff. But she said, no, everything was fine. But for some reason, she's acting kind of strange. And I'm just wondering what she, in her unconscious mind, absorbed with the relationship, when she saw the relationship between me and my husband, where I was, pretty lame.
Is she distant?
No, we're connected.
Okay.
But when we're together, she's really unkind.
Okay. So sometimes what happens is, I don't know her relationship with her father, but sometimes when the flow of communication is not safe to be expressed to the father, the safer parent gets the brunt.
Okay.
So, do you understand? So, in other words, if there's I'm just giving a wild card example here. If there's a mother and a father, and the mother is beating the kid, let's say, then they'll beat dad. They'll hit dad because it's not okay to hit mom, because mom's love is dangerous and also rare or precious. So they don't want to kill the little bond that's already there, or vice versa. If the dad is mean to the kid, then they will oftentimes act out on the mom because it's too dangerous to act out on the dad. So this is a complicated thing.
I would say that they have a relationship. He's just all about, he's not in touch with his feelings, so
Okay.
he's all about surface stuff, right?
Right.
He was taught, I think, not to have feelings, because when I would try to get him to be in touch with them when I was married to him, he really couldn't connect. He would just look at me like with a blank stare, feelings.
Right. So I don't know what kind of partner your daughter picked. Is she married?
She married a man. Oh gosh.
Go on.
This has got to be good.
Let's hear the pattern here.
Yeah,
Okay.
this has got to be good.
Yeah.
Or not.
Well, Mr. Know-it-all, just like her dad, in a different way, but Mr. Know-it-all.
Okay.
Yeah, like her dad
So-
is a Mr.
so
Know-it-all,
here-
and he's a Mr. Know-it-all.
So here's
It's just a different framework. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking is that you're the blueprint for who to pick as a pick. You blueprinted what kind of man to pick, right?
Yep.
Okay, so she then picked a man who's a know-it-all, maybe not sensitive, maybe not emotionally in touch. So now it's possible that she's angry at you, that you modeled for her to pick that kind of man. And so now she did it too.
Better than my husband. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
He's better
Okay.
than my husband.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, she kind of married her dad.
And it's hard to second guess these
In a way.
things. Okay.
In a way, yeah. But in a way not. So he's better than in terms of being in touch with her and
Okay. He's an upgrade. He's an upgrade.
showing caring to her and demonstrating care that I never got.
Okay.
So he's better. Yeah, he's better.
But
he's
don't
better than
forget
that.
when you have a child, when a woman has a child, when people have children, all of the feelings come up in the relationship, and
Yes.
all of the old wounds are opened up, and wounds that didn't get healed in the childhood start getting manifested in the relationship between husband and wife, and then they transfer on to the parents. And so I don't know if she's in therapy or if she's dealing with it. Obviously, we at the Psychological Healing Center do a lot of mother-daughter healing, okay? A lot of mother-daughter healing. So if she's willing to enter into this process, I already know that you are on the pathway because you're investigating and reading the material. It's not too late to heal the mother-daughter relationship. And if she has all this resentment, then as Walt likes to say, don't
explode or implode, but unload.
Right. And so what?
I hope that I'll be able to approach issues, and I'll be able to say, what, when you treat me so hurtfully, what is that about? What is going on?
Sure.
You try to get her to reflect and talk.
I think that's
Can't
really
do that when her husband's around, so she's coming to visit, and we'll have a few days together.
okay. I think that's a great idea. Ask her what's hurting her. Tell her that you're available to listen. And the most important thing is if she does say what she says, whatever it is, then don't go into panel number 5, which is defense mechanisms, because if you defend, then she'll be swallowing her poison, and then she'll be either imploding or exploding. Either she'll be forced to swallow it and get depressed, or she'll get really angry, or she'll project it on somebody else. So as you read the book, you're going to see how all the pieces of the system flow together, and because you're already inspired to want to know what's hurting her, you can start asking those questions and tell her that you're totally willing to go into a healing process. And then if she's willing to do it, then already know that we have a staff of people that work on a sliding scale fee, and we do therapy over the phone. And you're welcome to have her call me or the team members and explain how this works so that she doesn't have to stay stuck in this mode, okay? So thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate your question. Please keep me posted
Yeah,
as
keep
to
us
how
posted.
you are doing with
Yeah.
your daughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I was, as far as I'm concerned, I had to do no contact with my family.
That
I'm
sometimes is a way to go.
now, and I had to finally do no contact.
Okay.
My
So
nuclear family.
do what is best for you. You
Absolutely.
come first now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you so
Hey,
much.
thanks for calling
Moya.
and being part of the
Appreciate
show.
it.
And
Bye.
God
Okay.
bless and keep up the good work.
Yeah, good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, there's a lot of pain out there, and we've just gotten off of the series of contact versus no contact,
did.
and want to
Three-
emphasize
three-
that as
the calls on that were just incredible.
yeah, and it's a case by case basis, and I think sometimes people just have to cut it off because
Yes.
it's too painful, too destructive, and they have to put themselves first. And other times they can get away with having really good boundaries and go with light contact, minimal contact. We definitely explored that topic
We did
thoroughly.
We did. What the thing
last
was, we
3
got a
episodes.
lot of phone calls on it. But if you want
Yeah.
some more meat of information, you can write us at info at Dr. Judy WTF, and I'd be happy to send you some show notes on does a narcissist really miss you with no contact? How to do no contact, hovering, and some other issues that are a part of no contact. And
Right.
I do research for all shows, and be happy to spread the wealth and send
Right.
you. I do about 30 or 40 pages of notes per show.
And one of the things that I'm noticing in my practice is cultural injuries, which I want
Yes,
to do an
we're
entire
gonna
show
touch on that.
on, because not only are we injured by our family of origin, there are cultural injuries that are norms and rules within certain cultures, but are not necessarily mentally healthy. So what do you do when you're up against rules and roles and norms within your culture, but it goes against your mental health? That's a really tough one.
Boy, that's tough.
And so it's worth studying, and it's worth understanding how you're going to treat these delicate situations so that you don't go against your family in a way where you're blowing the entire relationship. You have to be very delicate about it, because these injuries or these cultural norms are ingrained for,
Very deep.
deep,
Yeah.
very deep. And every culture has a different way. Some cultures smother, some cultures demean more, some cultures hit their children, some cultures neglect their children.
Control.
Okay, so it's worthy of study. I want to do a show on this. Remind me, Walt.
Don't forget.
Don't forget. Okay.
And this is a call-in show. This is definitely the time to call. First Thursday of every month is free for all calls. And so you can call area code 323-843-2826, 323-843-2826, or Skype us at UBN Radio number 2. Another question that someone wrote in is, can a narcissist be a combination of all of the different kinds of narcissists? Somatic, overt, covert, etc.
I think everything's on a spectrum. And so that's a really broad question, and
It
that's
is.
why I can answer that is a narcissist wants to get their supply. So if they could get their supply by being overt, then they'll be overt. If they could get their supply by being covert, they'll change colors and be covert. So they can morph into different ways of expressing their narcissism, as long as at the end of the day they get their narcissistic supply.
They're going to do whatever it takes.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and they're going to be the chameleon, because they're going to be
Right,
they're very persuasive and conniving, and they're great in sales.
Yeah, and sometimes they could be overtly very charming. And so people will say, what are you talking about? That person is so kind and generous. He's a pillar of the community, or she volunteers every day, but then she goes home and she demeans and devalues the children. And then the kids are confused because everybody's saying, your mother is such a wonderful person. How come you're so angry at her? What's the matter with you?
And behind closed doors, it's a different story and
Right.
very confusing and very
Right.
frustrating.
Remember that movie,
Yeah.
Mommy Dearest, right?
Mommy Dearest.
Publicly, what was her name?
Don't remember.
Joan
Don't
Crawford.
Joan Crawford. Okay.
Joan Crawford, the character. Joan Crawford was a famous person, but behind closed doors,
Different story.
different story. So, yes, people will morph. Yes, people will do whatever it takes to get whatever they need. So, yeah.
And our next question. Please discuss the narcissistic mother silent treatments. I'm part of a group of survivors who have been through the silent treatment. Many of those silent treatments go on for years, even 10 years. Talk about devaluing. They won't make up with you. They won't work anything out. They enjoy the suffering and the deprivation of knowing that you were rejected by your own mother.
Well, somehow you didn't please that mother.
Yeah, no.
So this is your punishment. And I think one of the worst forms of punishment is isolating somebody and cutting somebody off. After all, the system that the mind map is really meant to heal is healing human disconnect. So if a mother gives a child the silent treatment, she's completely disconnecting from that child. Punishing. And she knows that that child is suffering because on every level, that child wants mother's love. And so she's cutting off the supply. And so in essence, what she's doing is she's projecting her feelings of anger into the child. So if she doesn't, in other words, a narcissist will feel good when other people feel bad. So they will derive some kind of pleasure from the other person feeling not so good. It's called projection, and they set their children up to receive that projection because they prime the pump, and that child already feels a sense of low self-esteem, and so they'll receive this projection thinking there's something wrong with them. So they're thinking, well, I did something wrong. That's what my mother's not talking to me. If only I could be nicer to my mother, then she will talk to me. What can I? So it becomes, in other words, she's setting it up so that the child becomes preoccupied with the mother, which is, again, putting her as
first.
the center of attention.
And the center.
Right?
And
so look, if you cut somebody
manipulation
off, then,
to the max.
Right, and then who are you going to, if somebody cuts you off, you're going to be thinking about the person that cuts you off, because it's back to this experiment that was done back in the day called the Zygarnik effect. Okay, there was an experimenter, Bluma Zygarnik, and she had a group of college students. One group was given the same task as the other group, and in one set of tasks, the entire process was interrupted. They called back the two groups a month later, and they were asked which tasks they remembered. And guess who remembered the tasks and who forgot them? The ones that finished the tasks or the ones that didn't finish the tasks? What do you think, Walt?
Well, the ones that completed the task probably remembered better.
No, actually, it's the opposite.
Oh,
it's
goodness.
the opposite. The ones that didn't finish the tasks remembered the tasks that weren't finished. In other words, do you remember
the lingering part,
The
kind of.
lingering part, the incompletion part.
Yeah.
So if mom cuts the kid off, there's an incompletion there. There's a dangling participle. It's like, what? What did I do? And they're racking their brain in terms of
They didn't get closure.
What, there's no closure
Yeah.
there, and
Oh,
so there's this
my.
open wound, and there's this desire to close the gap, and so as Freud says, there's unfinished psychological business, and this is a torture because the mother wants the child to just be in limbo in this unfinished, torturous chamber, which I like to call the dungeon of darkness.
The dungeon of darkness will keep the
Right.
child on edge.
on edge.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
So here's a comment. You can comment on this if you choose to.
Sure.
This was from the effects of narcissistic mother on her children. I do not agree with the statement, quote, narcissists are bad people, end of quote. Some are abusive, manipulative, mean people who destroy people's lives. Whether it stems or not from abuse, whether it's coping mechanism or not, narcissists harm people, which obviously kind of dovetail with what you just talked about with silent treatment.
Wait, she doesn't believe that...
They don't agree with the statement, narcissists are not bad people.
Well, hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So ethics and mental health are closely related. So are they bad people? They behave unethically. They behave harmfully. So in a harmful manner. So is it that they're inherently bad people? I think they're injured people, and as a result of their injuries, this is how their injuries are manifested, and until they're healed, they will continue to hurt other people, and then we label them as bad people because obviously their behavior isn't very good, right? And obviously we don't want to be around people who behave this way. From an empathic point of view, if we can have empathy for people like this, and it's very difficult because if somebody's hurting you, if somebody's destroying you, you just want to get away. So I think that there could be a sense of compassion, but that compassion doesn't mean acceptance. Okay, just because you can understand what happened to them from a wound point of view, it doesn't mean you have to accept their behavior. It doesn't have to mean that you're going to be their victim, so
you don't have to accept it.
But at least there's got to be a sense of, oh, I get what's going on. I get that my mother, my father, my husband, or my brother was injured this and this and this way, and that's why they're behaving this way. Which doesn't mean that you need to be in their pathway.
No, it just is an awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah, just to be aware.
Right.
And another narcissistic question, does a narcissist always feel entitled to others' money, or do they sometimes use their money to make others beholden to them? It's probably a financial situation, where we talked about a little bit.
It goes back to the intention,
I agree.
if they get their supplies. So if they're needing supply, they can use their money to entice people to do them favors. So there's a deal going on. If I pay for you, I own you. Okay? Entitlement. So there's no
entitlement.
There's no gracious giving. There's again no panel 7, which is the sharing thing. It's like, I'll do this for you, but you owe me.
It's like 1 for you and 2 for me.
Yeah. It's not a 1 + 1 = 2.
Never.
Or 1 + 1 = 3. It's always a 1 + 1 is -2 for the person who's being vampired.
Yeah.
That's mathematical, psychomathematical.
Narcissistic psychomath.
Psychomath, okay. Right.
Here's a borderline question. Why do narcissists pretend they are victims in domestic violence situations and their victims are the perpetrators? And why are so many of the family members believe in the perpetrators' smear campaigns anyway? How do you fight back against smear campaigns from abusers? This isn't a borderline question. That's
wow, this is a mouthful of a question.
It's a 3-part, or there's more, but we're just going to break it down.
So
why do narcissists pretend they are victims in domestic violence situations and that their victims are perpetrators?
And they're victors. Okay, so that they're at the effect of. Okay,
Yep.
So narcissists think that they're right.
Yes.
Okay, so
my way or the highway.
Matter what they do, their poop doesn't smell. Okay,
Never.
so by virtue of definition, they've done no harm. So
correct.
Right. So whatever. They have no ability to self-reflect and self-correct.
No,
so,
and I can give you a real-life example. I actually rent from a narcissist, and he's becoming more narcissistic. And every time we have a conversation, it really does turn into a confrontation from his perspective because he's confrontational.
Right.
And it's not his fault that the conversations are confrontational. It's my fault.
Right. So that's the projection.
Yes.
Their egos are actually very weak.
Yes.
There's no real inner core. And the only way they know how to protect their ego is to have this fake, false self, okay? It's stubborn. It's hardened. Okay, it's your fault. And it's a kind of a sense of arrested development where they're not able to really see their part in it at all. So it's almost, there's the finger pointing this way. As you say, if you point this way,
And then there's three or four
there are
meters
four
on yourself.
fingers pointing back at you, right? But they don't understand the concept of four fingers pointing back at themselves and taking ownership of that. So they're always going to be the victim, and they're going to be angry if other people
Yes.
disagree
Yes.
with their stance.
Yes, which, he's making what I'm calling unilateral decisions, which when I moved in, there was expectation of what we agreed upon, and all of a sudden what we agreed upon isn't true anymore, and he's changed it, but of course he didn't inform me. He just says this is the way it's always been.
See, a healthy conversation is, why don't I take the time to understand your point of view? And why don't you take the time to understand my point of view? And let's go into the intention of, in this conversation, that we're going to get each other before we start negotiating what each of us wants and do the push-pull and the clash and the fallout material, right? Let's really step into each other's shoes. And because narcissistically injured people lack empathy, it's really hard for them to step into somebody else's shoes. So all they can do is step into their shoes and see the world only from their point of view.
Yes, and along those lines, here's a covert question. Can a covert narcissist ever become less covert as they age?
That's a really good question.
I know.
I think with healing, yes. I think that covert narcissism is a way of, again, of protecting oneself. And I think that as a covert narcissist gets help, therapy, or gets more of a secure attachment, it's possible that they can soften up and they can start So one of the aspects of covert narcissism is that they don't know how to merge with another person, okay? So they always have to be in control. So they hold their cards close to their vest. So maybe with time and therapy, they can understand that love is not as threatening as they believed it to be, and that love doesn't mean a lack of power, okay? Because in covert narcissism, they hold the cards by playing a lot of different fields. For example, a person may have a lot of lovers. It's covert. They might be dating one person in one state and another person in another state and being engaged to be married to somebody else. And it's all, it's a covert operation.
It's a lot of work.
Right? It's a lot of work.
That's a lot of
okay,
work.
so why? Because they need a lot of narcissistic supplies.
Yes.
So, so maybe as they start understanding the cause, okay, and get down to the bottom of why they're needing to defend that way and why they feel so powerless on a core level, and start healing that, then that can start shifting. I believe in healing. I do. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing the work that I'm doing. I wouldn't have created a mind map to heal human disconnect.
Along those lines about narcissistic supply, I had a friend of mine who's very much a borderline, and when she moved and, of course, had been divorced, she determined that he had a whole entire separate family because he
Right.
traveled a lot.
Well, in the case of covert narcissism, there's a sense that if I merge with you, I will lose myself. Okay?
Yes.
And so merging means lack of
Loss.
control.
Yes.
And they're already so fragile in their inner world, they cannot afford to
Absolutely
do
not.
that. So what they need is secure attachment to somebody and to be held responsible for their ethical behavior.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that, right?
Yeah, good luck with
a lot of therapy, right?
Yes. And we got time for one more question. I want to close with the borderline one. As are borderline personality disorders individuals best living on their own?
I don't think so. They're best healing and then forming healthy, secure attachments, because the core of the borderline is that they're emotionally dysregulated, and as as we know, we're wired to connect, and we're really wired to heal within the relationship. So what a borderline personality disordered, dysregulated person needs to concentrate on is to dialing down the amygdala, the reactions to the wound, and to get rid of those behaviors that are going to push people away so that they could truly have that secure attachment. Because you can't, they want the secure attachment, but they pull people, so they're sabotaging the very thing that they want.
Do.
And so through therapy, they can understand that was their blueprint, and they're playing it out in the relationship, and they're never going to get what they want if they keep playing the same old.
Yes, and that's the definition of insanity. If you do the same things over and over again and expect different results.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I must say, folks, that Dr. Judy had no clue or idea of what questions I was going to ask. They were totally off
They were
top of
not
her head.
easy, Walt. Did I pass the test?
Oh, flying colors in my book. Yeah, so it's not like she had did a little homework and read everything. She usually walks in with one piece of paper, and that's the song we're going to shrink, and that's where we're going to next. So if you have some questions or comments, obviously you can comment on YouTube, or you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com. And we do read everything that comes in and respond. If you want to request one of the peaceful healing dialogue or the wound system, preventative wound system.
And you can get the book.
And, of course, the book you can get at Amazon at either Kindle or paperback. And if you've actually read the book, we would really appreciate if you would just take a little moment, go back on Amazon, and give a comment of what you liked, what you enjoyed, how you benefited from the book. It would really help us. And if you have had therapy with us, Dr. Judy has a new office in Beverly Hills, and you can go on Yelp and give a comment. We'd really appreciate that. We're trying to boost a little bit of our comments and get a little more exposure, and that would help us out a lot if you would do that. So that is the end of our queries and questions of the first Thursday of the month. We'll come up with some more questions, and you can write us, and we'll answer those as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Now is our time for Shrink That Tune, where we're going to take a popular song, and this one was recommended. I'm going to read the lyrics. Dr. G is going to interpret from her psychological mind map perspective, and then, of course, we're going to close out the show. So this one is called For You by Stained, Staind. To my mother, to my father, it's your son or it's your daughter. Are my screams loud enough for you to hear me? Should I turn this up for you?
Well, it seems like the mother and the father are people who are not hearing their own children, and this particular person is crying out to be heard. And so apparently they feel the need to turn up the volume on this one, on the cry.
Yeah, pump up the volume.
Yeah.
I sit here locked inside my head, remembering everything that you said. The silence gets us nowhere way too fast.
And here's the repression that then turns to depression. So it seems like it's not safe for the person to say anything, but then the person knows that it's not healthy to lock down and repress, and so they're in a conundrum. What are they going to do? Mom and dad are probably not healthy enough to hear it, but then again, they know that the silent treatment is going to
have an impact.
not end well. It's going to end in an implosion or an explosion.
The silence is what kills me. I need someone here to help me, but you don't know how to listen and let me make my decisions.
So again, he's alluding to the fact that they're not there to listen and they're not there to guide. So what's this person going to do but sit silently in their own head, in their own pain, and let all these horrible thoughts keep generating? The psychovirus is just rattling in this person's head.
And again, back to the chorus. I sit here locked inside my head, remembering everything you said. The silence gets us nowhere way too fast. All your insults and your curses make me feel like I'm not a person, and I feel like I'm nothing, but you make me do something, because I'm messed up, because you are need attention you can't give.
So there it is. All of these insults and these negative statements have penetrated, and now they're sinking in as destructive, negative self-view, negative core beliefs. I feel that I'm nothing. So this person's core belief is that he or she is nothing, and then this person is getting damaged by it. They need attention, but the parents are not capable, so the needs are never met. Yet the yearning is there.
Yeah, the yearning is there forever,
Yeah.
and the needs are never met, which is
Right.
interesting because a narcissist is never satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
I love the analogy in that regard where it's like a gigantic goblet with a crack in it. You can
Yeah.
pour everything you could possibly fathom into that goblet, and it is never going to be full. And
hole
the
in the
narcissist,
soul.
and that's the hole in the soul, and the narcissist will never, ever be satisfied, no matter what you do. It's really scary. And then we back to the chorus. I sit here locked in my head, remembering everything you said. The silence gets us nowhere way too fast.
So there's such an acknowledgement and an intelligence about this person, and this person knows that this silence is a killer, and yet he or she knows that you can't express these things to people who will not listen. So then they're just left with this these repressed feelings and the thoughts and the what do they say, these the curses and the insults just keep rattling in their head, poisoning the individual.
So that's our song, Stained, and by the group Stained, called For You, and that is our show. We are Dr. Judy WTF. I am your host, Walt Lusk, and of course, Dr. Judy Rosenberg, with offices in Beverly Hills, Sherman Oaks, and of course, all over the globe. And we do therapy, have a plethora of therapists in addition to Dr. Judy, and forever growing. You've got a bunch. And you even have some PhD doctors on your staff as well.
Yeah,
so
very
and a
wonderful
psychiatrist as
team.
well for here in California.
Yes, we've added a psychiatrist. We've